During World War II, one particular audacious bombing raid shocked Nazi Germany and changed the course of the war. But what if it never happened? What if it was impossible? Did it succeed, or was it a complete failure? Let's find out. In the years leading up to World War II, the British Air Ministry identified the Ruhr Valley as a strategic target. The Ruhr Valley was located in the industrial heart of Nazi Germany, in the western part of the country. It was a heavily industrialized region with many steel and coal factories. It was also a key transportation hub, with canals and railways connecting the region to the rest of Germany. But the Ruhr Valley was more than just an industrial center. It was also home to many people, including a large number of ethnic minorities. These minorities included Jews, Poles, and other groups who were persecuted by the Nazi regime. The region's dams were crucial for producing hydroelectric power, drinking water, and water for industrial use. While the RAF knew that destroying the dams would be the best way to weaken Germany, it would require an accuracy that they had never achieved before. They needed a weapon that could be delivered with precision and without warning. So, in the early years of World War II, the Nazi regime was rapidly expanding its power and influence across Europe. They were building weapons and facilities at a rapid pace, and the Allies were desperate to find a way to slow them down. This is why the bold plan that they hoped would turn the tide of the war was taken seriously. But why is that so? The mission took shape from an idea sparked by Barnes Wallis, the assistant chief designer at Vickers. Wallis, with experience in crafting bombers like the Vickers-Wellesley and Vickers-Wellington, and later the Vickers-Windsor, had initially focused on developing an anti-shipping bomb. However, the concept evolved towards dam destruction. Early on, Wallis envisioned dropping a massive 22,000-pound bomb from an astounding altitude of 40,000 feet, inspired by the earthquake bomb concept. Yet no existing bomber could reach that height or carry such a colossal payload. Undeterred, Wallis proposed the six-engined Victory bomber, but it faced rejection. Realizing the impracticality of his initial plan, Wallis shifted his focus. He recognized that a smaller explosive charge could rise if launched against the dam wall under the water. The challenge, however, was that German reservoir dams had protective torpedo nets, preventing an explosive device from passing through the water. Wallis carefully crafted a 9,000-pound bomb, essentially a massive cylinder or mine equipped with a hydrostatic fuse and designed to spin at 500 RPM. Released at 60 feet and 240 miles per hour from the aircraft, the mine would skip across the water's surface before striking the dam wall. The initial idea was to enhance the mine's range with backspin, but it was later discovered that it would cause the mine, after submerging, to follow the dam's side towards its base, maximizing the explosive impact. This groundbreaking weapon was codenamed Upkeep. To validate the concept, testing included the launching of a scale model dam at the Building Research Establishment in Watford in May 1942. Subsequently, the disused Nantygrow Dam in Wales was breached in July. A critical test indicated that a 7,500-pound charge exploding 30 feet underwater could breach a full-size dam, a weight within the carrying capacity of an Avro Lancaster. The first airdrop trial occurred at Chesil Beach in December 1942, utilizing a spinning 4-foot 6-inch sphere dropped from a modified Vickers-Wellington. The same aircraft was used until April 1943, when the first modified Lancasters became available. These trials, conducted at Chesil Beach and Reculver, were often met with challenges, featuring revised mine designs and variations in speed and height. Despite the setbacks, these experiments were crucial steps towards perfecting the innovative Upkeep bomb and ultimately shaping the mission. Avro chief designer Roy Chadwick took on the challenge of adapting the Lancaster to carry an unconventional mine. To shed unnecessary weight, internal armor and the mid-upper gun turret were removed. The unique dimensions of the mine required the bomb bay doors to be eliminated, with the mine hanging partly below the fuselage on two crutches. Chadwick collaborated with Barnes Wallis to design and install controls and gear for the mine's carriage and release, resulting in the modified Lancasters being dubbed Lancaster B Mark III Special. Now imagine two spotlights piercing the night, striving to determine the perfect height. A modified Lancaster, armed with a backspun drum bomb, aims. The bomb skips over torpedo nets protecting the dam, guided by the meticulous calculations of its designers. Upon impact, the bomb spins down to the dam's base, erupting in a powerful explosion. But in February 1943, Air Vice Marshal Francis Linnell at the Ministry of Aircraft Production raised concerns that Wallace's focus on this project was diverting him from developing the Vickers-Windsor bomber. This apprehension, fueled by pressure from Linnell and Vickers chairman Sir Charles Worthington Craven, led Wallace to offer his resignation. Sir Arthur Harris, head of Bomber Command, also resisted allocating bombers to the mission, as he was gearing up for a strategic bombing campaign against Germany with Lancasters just entering service. Amidst this conflict, Wallace found an ally in Group Captain Frederick Winterbotham, an influential intelligence officer. Winterbotham ensured that Air Chief Marshal Charles Portal, Chief of the Air Staff, saw the film of the Chesil Beach trials. Convinced by the potential impact, Portal overruled Harris on February 26, 1943, ordering 30 Lancasters for the mission. The target date was set for May, strategically chosen for optimal water levels and potential damage to the dams. The larger upkeep mine, essential for the mission, and the required modifications to the Lancasters were yet to be designed. The race against time intensified as Wallace and his team worked tirelessly to bring their vision to reality. What challenges might they encounter? And how would they overcome them in this race against time? For this mission, the new squadron named No. 5 Group RAF took charge due to the speedy formation process. Led by the seasoned 24-year-old Wing Commander Guy Gibson, boasting over 170 bombing and night fighter missions, this squadron was made up of 21 bomber crews selected from various 5-group squadrons. The eclectic mix included personnel from the Royal Australian Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, Royal New Zealand Air Force, and of course, the RAF. The home base for this daring operation was RAF Scampton, strategically located about 5 miles north of Lincoln. Their mission was clear: target the Mon Dam and the Sorpe Dam, both upstream from the Ruhr industrial area, with the Eder Dam on the Eder River as a secondary objective. While disrupting hydroelectric power was crucial, the potential impact on the water supply to industries, cities, and canals, coupled with the risk of devastating flooding if the dams burst, added an extra layer of significance. To execute this audacious plan, the crews had to master bombing from an incredibly low altitude of 60 feet, maintaining a swift airspeed of 240 miles per hour, and adhering to a set distance from the target. But what did they do, and what happened? They adopted intensive nighttime and low-altitude training. Technical challenges arose, starting with determining the optimal distance from the target. The Mon and Eder dams presented an additional hurdle with towers at each end. A specialized targeting device, initially designed with 2 prongs matching the angle of the towers, indicated the ideal release point for the bomb. However, intriguingly, the BBC documentary Dam Busters Declassified of 2010 suggested that this pronged device faced issues related to vibration, prompting the use of alternative methods, such as a simple set effective length of string tied in a loop and pulled back centrally like a catapult. Amidst these challenges, we are left to wonder how the crews were able to quickly adapt to the unforeseen technical obstacles and improvised solutions during their training. Another challenge arose when it came to pinpointing the aircraft's altitude. Barometric altimeters were not accurate enough, so they needed a new solution. They came up with a creative solution, using spotlights to measure the aircraft's altitude. The spotlights were placed under the aircraft's nose and fuselage so that the light beams were parallel to the water's surface when the aircraft was at the right altitude. They tested their new approach by conducting practice runs at various reservoirs around the UK. They tested the system at Ibrook Reservoir, Aberton Reservoir, Derwent Reservoir, and Fleet Lagoon. During these practice runs, they perfected the system so that the spotlights converged on the water's surface when the aircraft was at the correct altitude. The groundbreaking bomb designed by Wallace underwent initial testing at the Eland Valley reservoirs. The squadron officially received the bombs on May 13th after successful final tests on April 29th. An important briefing transpired on May 15th at Whitworth's house, where Gibson and Wallace presented their plans to the squadron's key figures. Squadron Leader Henry Eric Maudsley, Squadron Leader H.M. Dingy Young, Flight Lieutenant John V. Hopgood, and Flight Lieutenant Bob Hay were among those briefed. The remaining crews received the information in a series of briefings the following day, starting with pilots, navigators, and bomb aimers around midday. To make sure the mission was carried out successfully, the group was perfectly organized. Formation Number 1 comprised 9 aircraft in 3 groups, led by Gibson, Young, and Maudsley. Their primary target was the Mon, with any surplus bombs intended for the Eater. Formation Number 2, consisting of 5 aircraft, had the mission to attack the Sorp, with pilots like Flight Lieutenant Joe McCarthy and P.O. Vernon Byers. Formation Number 3 served as a mobile reserve with aircraft piloted by Flight Sergeant Cyril Anderson and others, ready to either bomb the main dams or target 3 smaller secondary dams, the Lister, the Inept, and the Diemel. Did it work as they planned? Unfortunately, 2 crews had to withdraw due to illness, adding an element of unpredictability to the mission. The operations room for this daring endeavor was located at 5 Group Headquarters in St. Vincent's Hall, Grantham, Lincolnshire. Morse code played a crucial role, with mission codes like Goner indicating bomb dropped, Nigger signifying the breach of the Mon, and Dingy denoting the breach of the Eater. Interestingly, Nigger was the name of Gibson's dog, a black Labrador retriever that tragically lost its life on the morning of the attack. As for Dingy, it was Young's nickname, earned through his remarkable survival of 2 crash landings at sea, where he and his crew were rescued from an inflatable rubber dinghy. As the squadron prepared for this historic mission, one couldn't help but wonder about the mix of anticipation and apprehension among the crew. What challenges did they anticipate, and how did they cope with the unexpected? On the night of May 16th, the aircraft embarked on their mission, carefully navigating away from known concentrations of flak and synchronizing their crossing of the enemy coast. Formation Number 2, taking the longer northern route, initiated takeoff at 21:28, with McCarthy's bomber facing a setback due to a coolant leak, causing a 34-minute delay as he switched to the reserve aircraft. Formation Number 1 adopted a staggered departure, with groups of 3 taking off at 10-minute intervals starting at 21:39. Meanwhile, the reserve formation commenced takeoff at 00:09 on May 17th. As Formation Number 1 entered continental Europe between Walcheren and Schoen, it ventured over the Netherlands, navigating around airbases at Gilze-Ridgen and Eindhoven. The 2 formations of aircraft took different routes to avoid detection by the enemy. The first formation flew close to the Ruhr, then turned north to avoid Ham before heading back south towards the Mon River. The second formation flew north and then converged with the first formation near Wessel, heading south to reach the Sorp River. Maintaining a low altitude of about 100 feet, the bombers aimed to elude radar detection. Flight Sergeant George Chalmers, stationed in O for Orange, observed his pilot navigating towards the target along a fire break in a forest, flying below treetop level, a sight that left him astonished. The initial casualties occurred shortly after reaching the Dutch coast. Formation Number 2 faced challenges, with Munro's aircraft losing its radio to flak, prompting a return over the IJsselmeer. Rice encountered trouble flying too low, striking the sea and losing his bomb, but managed to recover and return to base. Sympathizing with Rice, Gibson, after the completion of the raid, shared his own near-miss experience of almost losing a bomb to the sea. In Formation Number 1, Astell's bomber was lost near the German hamlet of Marbeck as it collided with high-voltage electrical cables, crashing into a field. Meanwhile, Barlow and Byers crossed the coast around the island of Texel. Byers fell victim to flak shortly afterward, crashing into the Waddenzee. Barlow's aircraft struck electricity pylons, crashing 5 kilometers east of Rees near Haldren. Remarkably, the bomb was thrown clear of the crash and remained intact for examination by Heinz Schweizer. In the face of adversity, only McCarthy's delayed bomber survived to cross the Netherlands. Formation Number 1, led by the renowned Guy Gibson, soared over the Mon Lake. Gibson's aircraft, affectionately named G for George, initiated the assault, followed by Hopgood's M for Mother. However, as Hopgood executed a low-level run, flak struck, leading to a devastating crash. Amidst the chaos, Gibson valiantly flew across the dam, diverting flak and setting the stage for Martin's P for Popsy to make a successful attack. As the squadron approached the Eder Valley, they encountered heavy fog, making the mission even more difficult. The Eder Dam, built in a challenging terrain, was thought to be impenetrable, but the squadron persisted, making multiple bombing runs. Finally, after damaging the dam, one of the squadron's pilots successfully breached it, causing a massive flood. This marked a significant victory for the squadron. Then came the Sorp Dam, deemed the most formidable obstacle. The Sorp was an earthen dam made of soil and concrete, making it much stronger. Only 2 aircraft, T for Tommy and F for Freddy, attempted to attack the dam. They made some changes to their approach, including dropping their bombs without spinning them and flying over the dam's length rather than the conventional right angles. Despite the difficult approach, they were able to breach the dam and cause significant damage. As McCarthy's plane flew over the Sorp Dam, the mission became even more difficult. They were flying dangerously close to a church steeple, and they needed to correct their height and heading to avoid colliding with the hillside. George Johnson, the bomb aimer, had the difficult task of adjusting the plane's course while keeping a close eye on the dangerous terrain below. They were under immense pressure, but in the face of these obstacles, the resilience of the squadron shone through. The Moan and Eder dams, once thought to be unbreakable, were destroyed by the brave men who carried out the mission. Even though the Sorp Dam presented more difficult challenges, the mission continued. Despite the dangers and challenges, the mission was carried out with courage and determination. During the heart-pounding mission, McCarthy's determination led to 9 gripping bombing runs before Johnson, the man in charge, finally nodded in satisfaction. On the 10th run, the upkeep bomb was unleashed, creating a deafening explosion. However, as McCarthy turned his Lancaster to survey the aftermath, a mix of relief and disappointment washed over him. Only a section of the dam's crest had been blown off, leaving the main body intact. Meanwhile, 3 reserve aircraft were assigned to the Sorp Dam. Burpee tragically never made it, succumbing to the enemy fire near the Gills Region airfield. Brown battled through the thickening fog, making 7 runs before deciding on a daring move. Consulting with his bomb aimer, incendiary devices were strategically dropped on either side of the valley. The ensuing fire lifted the fog, allowing for a direct hit on the 8th run. The bomb cracked but fell short of breaching the dam. Anderson faced challenges with a damaged rear turret and dense fog, forcing him to abandon his mission. The remaining 2 bombers were redirected to secondary targets, with Otley falling victim to enemy fire on the way to the Lister Dam. Townsend eventually dropped his bomb at the Inept Dam, but it failed to cause any significant damage. Intriguingly, there's a twist in Townsend's account. Some evidence suggests he might have mistakenly attacked the Beaver Dam instead of the Inept Dam. The German Naval Staff War Diary mentioned an attack on the Beaver Dam around the same time as the Sorp Dam assault. Reports from the Wupper-Verband Authority, responsible for the Beaver Dam, indicated the recovery of remnants of a mine, while a local eyewitness, Paul Kaiser, vividly described a bomber approaching and causing a massive explosion near the Beaver Dam. In his book, The Dam Busters Raid, John Sweetman delves into the moon's reflection on mist and water, asserting that Townsend's description aligns more with an attack on the Beaver Dam than the Inept Dam. He highlights the Inept Wasserverband Authority's insistence that only 1 bomb fell near the Inept Dam throughout the war, and it landed in the woods beside the dam, not in the water as per Townsend's report. Moreover, members of Townsend's crew independently recalled a manor house and an earthen dam, consistent with the Beaver Dam rather than the Inept Dam. The intriguing mystery unfolds. Was Townsend's heading of 355 degrees magnetic a miscalculation, leading him to the wrong target? The evidence seems to point towards the Beaver Dam. Townsend's report after the mission even makes it more suspicious. He reported that he faced some challenges while trying to locate his dam. In his post-raid report, he also voiced frustration about the inaccuracies of the Inept Dam map. And do not forget that the Beaver Dam, a mere 5 miles southwest of the Inept Dam, could have easily been confused, especially with the early morning fog enveloping the valleys. As the Lancasters made their way back, skimming treetops, the challenges persisted. 2 more Lancasters met their fate. Maudsley's aircraft was battered by flak near Netterden, while Young succumbed to flak near IJmuiden, crashing into the North Sea off the Dutch coast. 11 battered bombers touched down at Scampton at around 0311 hours, with Gibson making a dramatic return at 0415. Townsend's crew, the last to land at 0615, had to deal with a shut-down engine after passing the Dutch coast. Among those greeting the exhausted crews, Air Chief Marshal Harris stood, offering his acknowledgement to the last to touch down. The post-mission toll was grim. 3 aircrew members parachuted from Hopgood's aircraft, but one succumbed to wounds, and the others were captured. Otley's crew, despite their crash, had a survivor. The numbers revealed a harsh reality. 53 out of the 133 aircrew members faced casualties, a staggering 40% casualty rate. Notably, 13 of the fallen belonged to the RCAF, and 2 were from the RAAF. The survivors, 34 in total, gathered at Buckingham Palace on June 22 for a solemn occasion. Among them, Gibson stood tall, receiving the Victoria Cross. The honors extended further: 5 Distinguished Service Orders, 10 Distinguished Flying Crosses with 4 bars, 2 Conspicuous Gallantry Medals, and 11 Distinguished Flying Medals with 1 bar. The impact on the German side was significant. Initial estimates pointed to 1,294 casualties, including 749 prisoners of war and laborers from France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Ukraine. As more information emerged, the death toll in the Moan Valley alone reached approximately 1,600, factoring in those who drowned downstream from the dam in the flood wave. In the aftermath of the iconic dam's raid, 617 Squadron, celebrated as the Dam Busters, remained intact, evolving into a specialized unit. A distinctive motto, "Après moi le déluge," after me the flood, and a squadron badge were carefully chosen. The selection process, as documented by Brickhill, involved controversy over the motto's origin. Initially, the phrase "Après nous le déluge," after us the flood, faced rejection due to its association with Madame de Pompadour. The altered version, attributed to Louis XV in an irresponsible context, ultimately gained approval from King George VI. With their new motto, 617 Squadron continued to make significant contributions. They dropped Tallboy and Grand Slam bombs, utilizing an advanced bomb sight for enhanced precision in attacking targets like the German battleship Tirpitz. This technology revolutionized bombing techniques, allowing for the accurate targeting of smaller objectives. Fast forward to 1977, and Article 56 of the Protocol 1 Amendment to the Geneva Conventions came into play, outlawing attacks on dams under certain circumstances. The amendment specified that such attacks were prohibited if they could lead to the release of dangerous forces, causing severe losses among the civilian population. An exception, however, allowed for such actions if a dam was used for purposes other than its normal function and provided direct support to military operations. Johnny Johnson, the last surviving member of the Dam Busters responsible for the operation. His death in 2022 marked the end of an era, leaving behind a legacy that had shaped the course of history. Reflecting on the devastating impact of the dam's raid, the direct mine hits on the Moniz Dam resulted in a breach approximately 250 feet wide and 292 feet deep. The unleashed torrent of water, measuring around 33 feet high and moving at 15 miles per hour, wreaked havoc across the Mon and Ruhr River valleys. Factories and houses bore the brunt of the floods, with 11 small factories and 92 houses destroyed, and 114 factories and 971 houses sustaining damage. The catastrophe extended its reach, washing away 25 roads, railways, and bridges over a staggering 50-mile radius from the source. The Eder River gracefully flows eastward, merging with the Fulda, and eventually contributing to the Weser's journey to the North Sea. Its historical significance lies not only in its natural course, but in the creation of the Eder Sea Reservoir, a vital element in maintaining the navigability of the Weser and the Mittelland Canal during the summer months. However, the tranquility of the Eder Sea was disrupted during World War II when it became a target for a daring mission. The dam, strategically positioned, served not only as a water reservoir, but also as a source of hydroelectric power for the Ruhr region's armaments production. The audacious raid on the dam not only impacted the region's electricity supply, but also unleashed a wave of consequences, altering the course of history. As the breach sent ripples downstream, approximately 22 miles away in Kassel, the damage was not as severe as anticipated. The wave's force diminished, sparing the city from significant devastation, yet the real impact was felt in the heart of the Ruhr region's industrial machinery. The loss of hydroelectric power was a blow to the armaments production in the Ruhr. 2 power stations generating a combined 5,100 kilowatts were obliterated, and 7 others suffered damage. The aftermath of the raid resulted in a 2-week power outage in factories and households, causing a noticeable dip in coal production, with May 1943 witnessing a reduction of 400,000 tons, a setback attributed to the consequences of the daring mission. German historian Ralph Blank sheds light on the human toll, revealing a staggering loss of life. At least 1,650 people perished, with around 70 casualties in the Eder Valley and 1,579 along the Möhne and Ruhr rivers. The city of Nahim, situated at the confluence of the Möhne and Ruhr, suffered the most, with over 800 lives lost, including at least 493 female forced laborers from the Soviet Union. Downriver of the Möhne Dam, 1,026 bodies were identified as foreign prisoners of war and forced laborers from various camps, predominantly hailing from the Soviet Union. The raid's impact on the Ruhr's industrial output remains a subject of debate. Some sources downplay its significance, considering it a minor inconvenience, while others contradict this perspective. This historic event reminds us of the complex relationship between strategy and human impact during wartime. What if things had gone differently? Could the industrial output of the Ruhr have been more severely impacted, or was the raid ultimately a minor inconvenience? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to watch the recommended one on the screen right now.